Oh,
Hi.
yeah.
Sorry. I'm looking very scruffy at the moment. Yeah, so I'm still not as organized as all these people are in first quarter, second quarter. I still really struggle with that, to be honest. I'm currently running a program, a 7-week program, level 3 of my Emotional Alchemy Academy, which I launched in December. And the next thing will be running level 4 training starting in May, but I haven't started the promotion yet.
Got it. Okay. And when you do that, how much are you charging for that?
I haven't finalized the price, but it'll probably be around, it's a group online training, it'll be around $1,500 US.
Got it. Okay. Okay, fab. All right. Thank you, Kim. Well, thank you everyone for sharing. And my very, very first thing that I say about the event, and this is going to become really clear as well, is just I think it's sometimes easy to forget just how much being in a community like Crystal Circle gets you really clear in these areas. I mean, I don't think it's a surprise. Paulina, Catherine can just get on it. It's like, here's my numbers, here's what I'm aiming for, because you're on Crystal Circle, so you just get that, and we all do it that way. And the vast majority of people in the world don't do it that way, right? So there is an element where each of you also, in what you're actually promoting, is in its own way, in different ways, but each one of them is also in giving people that level of clarity where when people actually are at the event, that's exactly what people realize they need when they don't have it. They're like, holy cow, why am I not thinking in that exact same way? And it's the same as anything. Like right now I'm like in the midst of all this training for like my first Ironman, right? And so I'm watching like YouTube videos and I'm speaking to people that have done them before, and the level of sophistication of how they think about like the way they cycle, the way they run, it's just a whole different level, right? And it's like, wow, okay, we've been doing it wrong all this time. But then you realize that at every level up you want to go, you have to get to a high level of sophistication, right? I mean, this was a really interesting thing that happened at the Crystal Circle quarterly meeting, where we had the first quarterly meeting where we actually had everyone show up live in South Africa, which happened a couple of weeks ago. And we had some people there who were like very advanced, and we had some people there who were just getting started, and where it's really easy for people to get overwhelmed, and where I basically likened entrepreneurship to flying a plane, which obviously I've done that before as well. But the difference of, look, if you want to do like $1 million promotion, is that's like a commercial jetliner compared to like a $10,000 or $50,000 promotion, which is kind of like a little Cessna plane, right? And there isn't a single commercial pilot that didn't start at the Cessna level, right? Like everyone started as a kind of like a small, private plane. And so that's what I was sharing with everyone. It's like, listen, like it doesn't matter. Like if you're not yet, like it's like, geez, like I can't fly a commercial plane yet. It doesn't matter that you can't do that. What is important is that you have to start the process, right? And realize that flying a plane is totally different from flying a car, like driving a car. And running a business is totally different from having a job, right? It's the same thing where one's 2-dimensional, one's 3-dimensional, and understanding the difference of the two is that, you have to actually go through more training and more hours as a pilot before you're going to be allowed to actually take passengers up with you. And within business, it's exactly the same thing as well. So the really important thing about all this is you can't actually give people that experience of that or that awareness of that without putting them in an environment where they get that awareness for themselves. You can't just kind of explain that to someone, even on a phone call. And I say all that because like, that's the reason we do events, right? The reason we do them is because it is the fastest, quickest, easiest way for people to really get to know what they don't know. And that's why like just the opportunity that you are partnering with us to use the event as a way to bring along all those people who you might be trying to get on the phone, you might be trying to kind of like get them, with more information about what you're doing. And it's like perfect time to say, hey, like you really should come along for this event because it's going to give you a really good insight as to how you can go about really building your business and really growing it as well. So the most important thing is that, number one, the event is not about me or my content. I think the mistake I sometimes see partners make is they go out saying, oh, there's this guy, Roger Hamilton, coming in town, and oh, this is the stuff he's going to talk about, and this is the reason that you should go. But it's not actually about that. I mean, while that's important, it's about them more than it's about me, right? So it's much more about basically getting your list together and saying, you know, if you think about what gear you need to get to with somebody to get to a point where they're going to pay $5,000 to you, that really is fourth gear, right? So fourth gear is anything where you're a couple of $1,000s plus, right? So like, what's first gear? First gear is something for free, right? So it's kind of like just someone being willing to be a community member, being willing to pay time before they're paying money. So each one of you already has something that people are doing for free. Maybe they're reading your content, maybe they're reading your blog, right? Maybe they're getting email from you, right? So you look at that list of people and you say, okay, all the people I'm already in contact with for free, they clearly are investing their time, and they're not yet investing the money, but they're actually seeing there's value in what I do. Like, how many of people are there then, right? And like, if you're at a point where you're saying, look, I really want to get, you know, I think a number of you are at the 5 number, right? Let's take it at 10, right? To make it even numbers. And you said you wanted to get 10 clients at fourth gear, which means 10 clients paying you, you know, a couple of $1,000s plus, right? Well, to get to those 10, you first of all got to get to third gear, right? And third gear is where someone's already sampled something or been willing to do something where they're actually putting down more like, you know, $1,000, right? The max on the third one is really $1,500. So like, the difference of 1,000 and 1,497 isn't actually that different, right? If someone's willing to pay $1,497, they're going to be willing to pay 1,000, but they're not going to be willing to pay $1,500. I mean, it's a weird thing, but the moment you add those extra $3, people tend to round numbers, right? So they'll round 1,497 back down to 1,000, but 1,500 they'll kind of like round it up to 2,000, right? That's kind of how they think. So just being really aware. If you don't yet have a product of some sort at that level, obviously, if you bring them along for the event and they decide to do something like join GEM, right, where they just got in the habit of saying, wow, I just paid $97 a month for something, or like $970 for the year, or if they've got payment plans, $1,300, right? But it's that third gear range. The moment people take third gear, they're open to fourth gear. So even if it's our GEM that they buy, they're going to be more open to then buy your $5,000 product, right? Because they're at that point where they're like, oh, I'm in a community. I'm now not, because the only reason someone actually gets to third gear is they've got to a point where they're like, okay, I actually want to learn how to fly now. I mean, like, they've gone past that point, which is like, maybe I can figure it out for myself. And they're at that point where they've realized there's a whole level they don't even know what they don't know. And that only happens when they actually show up at an experience. So if you're there thinking, okay, well, how am I currently getting people at the like $5,000 mark if I never had to get them to pay $1,500 or something, right? And there's a pretty good chance with each one of them, they're paying someone else that kind of money already because they're already invested into their learning, right? And maybe they're paying us, right? Or maybe they're paying someone else, but they're already doing that in some way. Or they might have already paid you that amount because they kind of like came on board for a number of sessions and it just added up over time and it got to that point, which is like, right, I'm ready to really go fourth gear now, right? And everyone goes to that decision, but nobody goes from 0 to fourth gear straight away. Like, no one does that, right? Because they're not yet convinced paying $5,000 is really going to help their business because they're not used to doing it, right? Now, if you're at that third gear, you say, well, how many people do I need at third gear to get to fourth gear, right? And our experience is roughly around 1 in 3 people that get to third gear will go to fourth gear. Some immediately, some within a couple of months, but like within basically 6 months of them going to third gear, they'll go to fourth gear, right? Which means if you want to get like 10 people, you want to have 30 at the gear below. And if you want to have 5 people, then you want to have 15, right? Ideally, right? And again, that might be a mix of people that you already have got to that point, people who come for the event who then decide to go for GEM or something like that. And you might also consider saying, well, you know what? I need to get my own product, which is at the $1,000 mark or $1,500, something like that. And you can do that, right? Like the best, what people are willing to buy into before they buy into content. Because if they're just getting to level 3, they're not yet convinced in their own ability to apply the learning. Meaning if you're just selling them content, they're not going to do it. But they will join a community, right? Because the community is like, oh, I'll be around other people that are going to be doing stuff. And so that means I'm going to kind of learn how to do this stuff as well, as opposed to, well, like I'm not going to pay $5,000 for a course because I'm not convinced I'm actually going to apply it, right? Or that it's going to work for me. Okay, so like that fourth level can very much be guidance, which is what every one of you is doing, very much magnified strategy. But the third level, which is more like 1,500 or 1,000, 1,500, has to be much more community based, which is kind of why we do it the way we do it as well, right? It's why Mindvalley can't sell any content at 1,500 or 1,000. In fact, what they realized was when they get to A-Fest, which used to be 1,500, they can actually charge 4,000, 5,000. But the people that do that are people that are already bought into their community. And in fact, if you now look at their entire new model, their entire new model is that you buy into the community first at 1,500, and then after that, you then top it up and go to A-Fest, right? So they've just, they've figured that one out, but that's really important. Now, so you say, well, that's third gear. If I'm on 5, I need to have 15 people. If I'm doing really well, I might improve my chances. I might get 50%, right? Which means 5, I need to get 10 people. And that's pretty much as high as it's going. Don't expect more than that. So then you say, well, then instead of me thinking, who are my top 5 people that I want to have who are going to join me, because I can't predict that, my bigger question is, who's my top 15 people that I want to have that get to third year, right? Who's my top 15 people? And when I speak to them and say, hey, you really should come for this, what am I telling them as to why, right? If you say to somebody, you should come to this because it's really good content, they don't buy it because they don't think they don't apply the content. If you say, you should come to this because it's the most amazing community, and you're going to meet all these amazing people that I'm currently spending time with that are getting great results, and you should be getting much better results than what you're getting at the moment, and I know you're going to get really, really powerful results from getting here, that changes the whole way people start thinking about themselves showing up, right? Which is really important. Now, if you go from third gear and say, well, I'm going to have 15 people to get to 5 or 30 people to get to 10, if I had an idea of who those people are, where am I getting those people from? And that's going to come down to second gear. So second gear is where you're now sitting around $300. That's about the number. In fact, $297 is the exact number. But it's the same thing, right? It's like, and now, something like Mindvalley, they sell their programs at $300. Within the case of quite a number of you where you've actually got mentoring you do, where people go in for $100 at a time. And so now you're more like at $300. Same thing, that there's a number around about the $300 mark where people are kind of thinking, I'm willing to give something a go to see if it works based on the fact they've already paid something, but they're now willing to go over that next step. That's why I kind of our platinum tickets were like $300 plus, because the people that were at that level kind of like, well, okay, I'm ready to invest more to just test the waters about going deeper, right? It's not the first time they've tested the waters, but it's to say, now I've done a little bit, is it worth actually doing a little bit more? And that's basically like the $300 mark. Generally, that's when someone wants to be part of some kind of guided program, but they don't mind if there's a bunch of other people involved as well. Now, what's really interesting is when you give someone a payment plan, like when we say to people, $97 a month for something like GEM. And the reason I mention that is like 20% of all the people that come along for events decide to join GEM, right? It's because it's so compelling and it's so simple. And if we started by saying it's $1,000, we would get a lot less people joining. But if we say, look, it's $97 a month, then people go, oh, I can afford that, right? And so how you spread things out and the way you break it down so people can say, look, I can afford to lose that money at the risk that it doesn't work based on the fact I actually think it will work, right? So they're already at the point where they're not absolutely convinced, but they've got a better guess that it's going to work for them. And so to do something which is like a six-week program, or in the mind they're thinking, if I joined for a couple of months and it really, really didn't work, I could probably figure a way out of it. I've only lost a couple $100 at that point. That's the way they're thinking, right? And so that concept of coming on board and having something at that level, if you don't have something like that level at this point, do have it. And obviously we have that, which is basically giving people that kind of step in where they can actually do, wealth dynamics profile and then a debrief. And a lot of those people that do that, those are the people that spend a couple $100 that are then much more likely to do more with us as well. And again, going back to Mindvalley example, because I think they're a really good example where they're following along the same pattern. All of their Quest programs are all like $300 basically, because that's like the sweet spot. So that now at that level, you could say, well, how many people do I need at that level to get like 15 or 30 to get up to level 3? And you need at least double as many, right? Which means you need to have between 30 and 60 people. So then you're then saying, well, I need to have 30 or 60 people. What would be an ideal number if I really want to get like 5 sales out of all the people I'm inviting along to Entrepreneur Fast Track or Global Entrepreneur Summit? And if you say, well, if I could actually get like 30 people that I could actually be inviting along, and they may not all show up, but the ones that are most likely to be the right ones that would show up, right? And I could get 15 who would then actually be there. And I'd be saying that all be ideal for GEM, and they might not all join GEM, but if actually they were to all join GEM, then I'm very, very, very likely to get my 5 people immediately that I'm going to actually make sales on. And if I only got like 5 or 10 of them joining up, I'm still making all the commission on it, which actually really adds up. And then I can follow up with them afterwards as well, right? But all of this, the most important thing is too often we try and go for the big stuff, and we get a few people who tend to be people we've built very high trust accounts with already because they're our friends or they've already done work with us. But then to realize until you have a flow, like on an event like this, that like you can bring people into and leverage that flow, because we're obviously going to be there anyway, and do all of that. It's a very low cost way of kind of super turbocharging the people that are then building trust with you, especially when you're on stage, when you're being pointed out in the audience, when your brand logo's out there. All of that is basically parachuting in instead of climbing the mountain, right? It's like, it's making the most of that. So every one of our partners always knows they've got the opportunity to generate like pretty much the entire quarter's sales by just getting people along for the event and then really warming them up into your own things off the back of it as well, right? And obviously, because Jess has organized this thing on the Sunday at GS, that's going to be even better, right? And then you've got finally the first gear. So what is first gear? First gear, basically, after you've actually got like people coming in for free, is when they're just paying something. And it doesn't matter what it is, but it's probably less than $50. And the reason that we actually have our price point for our tickets is because that's the very, very, very simple entry level for someone to do something where they go, well, that's a really reasonable price, whether it's the price for like a 1-day EFT or 2-day GES, right? So super important to be thinking in that way. And by actually just the way that we've designed the whole program, it gives you that way to kind of leverage that for all of your own products as well, which is why, you know, the partnerships work so well within the whole way we do it. So short, sorry for my throat. So short summary. Number one, always be thinking in gears. Number two, don't think about who are your top 5 people at the end. Think about how you're going to be getting a large number in that then guides your way up to that. And then number 3, rather than going out with like a mass email to everybody, tailor the emails. You're way, way, way better off, you know, going to 30 people individually one by one, which doesn't take that long when you've got 30 people, with a very personalized email as to why you're inviting them deliberately, and even phoning them or messaging them, or do it different from just basically an email. So you know you're actually getting a yes or a no from each one of them, and doing it in such a way to say, look, I've got this ticket for you, or I've got this space for you, and I really, really want you to be there, and this is the reason why, and here's the value you're going to get out of it. To do that much more than just go out with kind of like a spam email and then wonder why no one's answering, right? Because no one really responds to that anymore anyway. But the more you get very, very direct and you actually lead it forward, the better. If you have also people that already are coming along, get back to them. Say, look, the whole thing's about community. Who do you that you know should really be there? And follow up with those people, right? Because that's going to be your warmest leads to be able to then build and grow your platform as you go as well. Okay, I saw a note here from Jess who says, hey, Roger, if there is time, can you share some of the cool things that you are thinking of 2020 that people will learn at GS? Yes. Okay, final thing I will share is we were talking about a new theme for this year, given that 2 years ago, our theme was the entrepreneur movement, and our theme last year was the World Game, right? So like everyone got behind that. So in the second quarter, actually not even the second quarter, at the end of March. So this will actually be in time for the New Zealand and also for the Australian events, is we have a new theme, which is still evolving, but it pretty much centers around the concept of Entrepreneur 2.0. So if you imagine, like the image I want to get is the Vitruvian Man, right? But basically like Entrepreneur 2.0 is the fact that we've just gone for the last 20 years with Entrepreneur 1.0, like the whole concept of the entrepreneur movement and people that can actually, you know, run a business that can be global, all the things that we kind of like already now know, like, you know, you can use the internet, you can get smart about your marketing, you know, you can build a business really just as one person who can then basically then have, you know, people all around the world. And some people are still catching up with that concept, but as they're catching up to that concept, we are now only 300 days away from 2020, and the next decade is going to be totally different from the one that we've had so far. So everyone needs to upgrade, even if you think that you kind of have it figured out. Things are moving so quickly right now that Entrepreneur 2.0 is a very different type of person from Entrepreneur 1.0. And some of the things, and I've got a list, right? I've got a list of basically top 8 things that Entrepreneur 2.0 is different from Entrepreneur 1.0. Some of you heard of some of them, like customer first instead of product first, you know, like think global instead of think local. So there's some like that. There's some new ones as well, which are all about things that people have to really get in their mindset and shift the way they're thinking. I'm also going to be launching something which I've been looking at for some time called the Entrepreneur Test, which actually takes the kind of big five, which are like the big five psychological tests around just how curious you are, just how persevering you are, things that actually apply regardless of whether you're a creator or a star or an accumulator. But if you don't have these 5 things, then your chance of being entrepreneurial is much, much lower. The good news is every one of those 5 things can be taught, right? So everyone can learn them. And they're all about like shifts in the way that you actually operate in terms of the way you think. And so we're going to be actually opening and launching that as well. So lots of new stuff, which is going to be coming out for the February-March events, which is very, very April events, which is super exciting. So keep tuned for that. That's it. Time's up. Was that helpful?
That was awesome. Thanks, Roger. Another great meeting. Thank you.
All right.
Thanks, Roger.
Thank you.
Bye, team. Take care. See you next week.
See you next week. Bye.